Now, early last month, early back in February here, right when OpenQual was released, a lot of skill marketplaces were popping up around it. And there had been other skill marketplaces as well before then, but really just entering the public sphere then. And early last month, one of the first things that Rufio and I did was go try to find a bunch of malicious skills in all of these marketplaces. And we highlighted a few, one of those being what I'm showing in front of you, right? A lot of skills are really just credential stealers masquerading as some type of skill. And we needed a way to really analyze these. And the way some people are trying to handle this problem today is they're asking one LLM to actually review a skill. And that's kind of like what most skill scanners are, just like having one LLM take a look at the skill and tell you whether it's good or bad. Another approach is running some static checks around it on the Yara side. But the more I looked at this problem, the more I realized, hey, we could do better. So today on this very special episode of All About Identity, I'm going to walk you through a different solution that is available to you now. It's probably worth a second at least going over the skill problem for folks who maybe don't even know what a skill is in the AI world with how fast things are moving. The way I like to think about skills in general is think of skills like when Neo needs to learn Kung Fu in the Matrix, right? It is a way of, plugging in for a second and suddenly being an expert in whatever that thing is. And it's how agents learn to do things. So if you're more interested in kind of like a skills breakdown in general, episode 5 of our podcast here, I went over it in a lot of detail, probably too much detail of what we were finding kind of in the wild. But essentially it was just, man, so many credential stealers kind of being disguised as various things like weather skills and things like that. Since then, I think we're only talking a couple months, but since then, we're already in a better state as a community in the sense that people at least understand that skills are out there and they can be malicious. And there are things that people are trying to do to combat them, right? There's been a million skill scanners made. Or obviously, I'm about to talk about one that we have done, which I swear is different. But there's a million skill scanners out there. And in a lot of the marketplaces, they're doing things now like trying to highlight which ones may be suspicious. I know a lot of people are arguing that they could do more. And one of those people is actually Zach Corman, who's like kind of like the guy for highlighting how unsafe skills can be and how most skill scanners just don't answer the mail on being able to find malicious things. So maybe it is worthwhile. I'll click through a couple of these. I can't remember if I showed some of these already, but if you're interested, I'll throw it in our description. But Zach Corman, his skills repo on GitHub is just a treasure trove of really fun ideas that he's obviously exploring as he's trying to highlight to the community all the ways you can bypass current things. So here's one that I like a lot. This looks like a skill for PDF helper. And looking at it in this view, obviously you see nothing. But if you go to the raw view, you'll notice real quick that there's HTML comments that are being hidden in the markdown render that the user probably wouldn't see, but an agent will. And would an agent follow us? This is one of the ones that I think I end up running for you here in a little bit, so you can see how it behaves. But he has so many more in here. Like, I don't know. Let's just click on a couple and see if we can figure out what's going on. Danger zone. Cool. So hooks, command, danger zone skill, scary, malicious, funny. And let's see. Essentially, looks like a skill that's trying to masquerade as a hook itself. But yeah, if you're interested in a repository of skills that probably get around most of the checks you currently have, I would check Zach Corman has out here. But honestly, there's just so many malicious skills all the time. And you can even just ask your agent itself to create one for testing purposes and see how that behaves. But in general, just be aware and malicious skills are out there in all the marketplaces. Be careful what you're downloading. And I actually recommend for most folks, like if there's something you want your agent to learn how to do, have it create the skill itself rather than go download a skill from someplace else. Most of the time, the agent is good enough at creating its own skill that you don't need to go find somebody's super curated one. It's relatively cheap to generate and make it more in tune for exactly what you're looking to do. So if you're going to use skills, create them yourselves is more often the better approach. But let's get back to our approach to this problem. Why is SandyClaw different? So before we get into what I've actually built SandyClaw here, let's actually first talk a little bit about what the current approach to the problem is, right? How are people trying to find malicious skills at the moment? Well, the way they're trying to do it at the moment is they're essentially typically just doing this, asking another LLM to review the skill and tell them if that skill was bad or not. Maybe they're taking it a step farther and using one of the million skill scanners out there to scan it as well. But most of those skill scanners are doing things like running a few YAR rules or doing some basic string matches. A few of them do a little bit more. I like Cisco skill scanner. I think they take it like just a tiny bit of a step further, which is helpful. But it's all very static designed, right? And what I have here in front of you is one of those skills that I mentioned earlier, PDF helper here. This is one of Zach Corman's skills. And what the skill is doing, if you just like a quick recap here, is there's secret instructions within the skill itself that are hidden inside HTML comments that if the agent were to read this and follow those instructions, I would perform an unsafe operation here, right? A curl against Zach Corman's website where he's probably got a little bit of logging to see how many people are playing around with this. Now, if I ran like a skill scanner against this, it might catch this, right? It might catch the curl command. It might catch the way of doing hidden comments. That might be something noisy that would happen a lot, but it might do that, right? And similarly, if I asked an LLM to look at this, if I gave Opus this or GPT-5.4 this skill and asked it, like, hey, do you think this is good or bad? It would probably think this is bad. But what if it wasn't this style of hiding, right? Instead of an HTML comment, just change the color of it. And maybe instead of the instructions being a direct curl command, what if it was base64'd a couple times or obfuscated in any of the number of other ways you can obfuscate something, right? That will get around your static YAR rule or your regex that's looking for it, but ultimately it would still launch, right? So while this method will work great for some really known things like this, I wanted to build something that would take advantage of what I think is oftentimes a better way of analyzing things, and that's dynamic analysis instead. So the SandyClaw perspective, what I built, and I'll show you here in a moment, is instead of just ask another LLM to review it or just scanning with some static scanner, instead, hey, those are apart. We should do some scanning. We should look for some static features. Those are great signal. So I do that, right? I ask a couple of LLMs to look at the skill. I also run a bunch of generic skill scanners. So I use Cisco skill scanner since that's open source. I have ClamAV running against it. I have a Yara with a bunch of rules that I've written in play there, right? I'm looking at a bunch of static features, but more importantly, I just want to detonate the skill in a safe environment, right? So I have it running in a container. So when you submit a skill to SandyClaw, it'll actually just take that skill, spin up a container. That container has OpenClaw running in it. And then we feed that skill to OpenClaw and entice it to take action. And through that entice it to take action, we capture everything that it's doing on the LLM side, right? So every tool call, every invocation that it does, but maybe more importantly, the things that are happening on the OS side as well. So every file that gets generated, I pump that through Yara rules and ClamAV rules. Every network thing that's happening, right? That PCAP gets run through Snort. All the logs that get generated, they're going through Sigma. So what this allows me to do is start looking for markers of behavior that are bad based on how the skill actually runs. Now, this is also not going to get it right 100% of the time. It's going to sometimes get it wrong, but it gives me much more data to work with for figuring out if something's good or bad. So that's kind of the intention behind SandyClaw. So let me now just show it to you. All right. So here's an example using that same skill we were just talking about, right? Zach Corman's PDF helper skill, which again, he made purposefully to be malicious. And what I was explaining before in that Excala draw, and how we look at both static and runtime features, that's kind of how I carve things out at this primary disposition layer, right? This is your TLDR when running a skill through SandyClaw. It tells me from an input perspective, do I think this is good or bad, right? Static wise. And then from how it behaved, do I think it's good or bad? And then based off of the static markers and the runtime markers, overall, do I think this is good or bad? And this is actually something I kind of struggled with a little bit when creating this was, did I want to give a disposition or do I just want to report what each engine is giving as analysis? Like, do you go the VirusTotal style where you just report on what each engine does? Or do I take it a step further and then try to give a disposition on top of that? I did take it that step further. I still don't know if that's the right move. We'll see as people start using this, how that goes. So this is the TLDR portion of it, but then you can go see all the details, right? If you want to know exactly what the output of the agent was when it tried to run that skill, this is the output. If you wanted to see all of the engines I ran and what each engine thought about it from a high level, you want to know what Cisco Skill Scanner thought, it flagged on this rule, and what Yara flagged on, what Snort flagged on. Great. And this is just giving you kind of a listing of each of those hits, but I also let you see the full details of all those, right? So if you want to see, a Cisco Skill Scanner thought this was bad. Why did it think it was bad? Well, it thought it was bad because of this command, right? And this is what it was looking for in here, which is essentially just a curl command occurring for Yara, right? I have lots of Yara rules looking for things. I even have some specific Yara rules that are looking for Zach Corman skills because I know he's always doing fun stuff. So it's looking for his style of comment with a curl command feeding off the bash, right? And you can see kind of all the reasons why. And I don't want to treat this like a black box, right? I want you to be able to see why I determined these things. So you can even see the full Yara rule that was written related to this and the like, right? So try to give you more information. So this findings area is about just letting you explore the findings that we had, but I let you get to kind of all the details, right? So if you want to know just everything that the agent did itself when trying to run that skill, well, here's everything it read, right? If it did any network connections, you would see that. From a network activity stance, if there was any actual traffic that we captured, you can get the full PCAP of that. If we did any SSL decrypt, which I guess I didn't have any SSL to decrypt on this one, we would show that there. And maybe one of the more fun features is even things like file writes. Maybe you want to know the thing that was written, right? If that skill ended up dropping a payload that was interesting, great. You can go see that payload as part of this. So I kind of maybe took this a step too far for showing you in the beginning here, like going into the full analysis of something. So maybe I'll take a step back here as well, right? So this was a full run, but how did we get here and how will people actually use this tool? So let me actually switch over to something real quick to show that. Great. Okay. So when you land on sandyclaw.permiso.io, you will now be able to search for skills. So let's do what we were just doing there, right? If I went and look for Zach, right? And then I can see all the skills related to Zach Corman. You can search based off of the name, the URL, or the hash if you have it. I think most people coming to use SandyClaw are actually probably just going to come look up in our skill repository for anything that we've already scanned. Did we think it was good or bad? Now, say you're doing this because you want to install a skill. You search for the skill weather and you look, oh yeah, there's lots of weather ones in here, but I don't see the one I was looking for. Well, maybe you then want to go run a skill for it. So run a skill through SandyClaw. You can do that. You have to be logged in for this. It's a free thing. You don't have to pay for this. You're able to do 10 runs a month for free. And that's mostly just to make sure the costs aren't crazy on our own side. You could do that, right? This is a free thing that you can use. You can sign up for an account, log in, and then run skills through here yourself. So let's go to clawhub.com and say you are really interested in the weather. And let's go with one that looks like it doesn't have a lot of downloads yet. Sure, 117. Ooh, I thought I saw one that was great. 84. Great. No API key needed. VirusTotal and the security scan's already in play. I think this is okay. Let's go ahead and grab this and we'll go run it in SandyClaw. Okay. All right. So now that you're logged into the platform, you can run a skill through here yourself. So for instance, we just grabbed that Claw Hub skill. I go to skill URL, type in the skill URL I want to scan. I can optionally give it a companion prompt. If not, it'll run with the default prompt that tries to entice the skill to install and do some behavior. Choose which model I want to run this against. Choose some special options like, do I want this to run with full network connectivity? Do I want to simulate network activity and the like? Even if I want to do SSL intercept, which I'm going to do in this one. But simply, I click launch. Now, before I do that, realize there's some other options here. I can do prompt only mode. Prompt is only mode means I could just give it any prompt I want to. That prompt could be, as you can see here, give it a prompt of 1 + 1. Do we think that's good or bad and why? Great. I could go click into this run to find out. Or my observability tests one, which is made to look more suspicious. I could do that. But you could put a prompt. If you're in prompt only mode, you could just put any old prompt in here. Go download the Axios NPM package and use it to fetch web content. That could be your prompt. And now you can see what happens when Axios is leveraged. So I use that example because I've been actually using this quite a bit lately, just to all the supply chain stuff that's been going on. Get SandyClaw to run it in a containerized environment. Even though this is meant for doing skill scanning, I can use it for doing package scanning as well, things like that. But anyways, you have a few options for doing this. I'm going to choose the skill URL mode and click launch run. Now, when I click launch run, what's really happening on the back end here is a container is being spun up. That container is running OpenClaw. OpenClaw is getting this skill installed on it, and then a prompt that's enticing it to make some behaviors, like use the skill, analyze the skill, but also use the skill. That takes a little bit of time. Now you can think when you go to, say you put that same skill and that same prompt into Claude Code yourself, it might take a couple of minutes to run. That's what it's going to take here, usually 100 to 400 seconds, and then you'll get some result back afterwards. Now, while that's going, maybe one of my favorite features of the platform is this. While a run is going, you can play a little arcade game with a global leaderboard and see how you compare it to me. Ooh, this is running slow right now. Here we go. And as you can see, nobody's come close to my score on the side there. I won't bother continuing to run this too much more. Don't want to cast shade on anybody who may not be as good, but catch the green ones, avoid the red ones, and then you can add yourself to the scoreboard, which there you go. I'm up there. Yeah. Runs take a little bit of time. Maybe you want something fun to do while you're doing that. If you do, I'd love to see someone beat my score. So go for it. But now we wait, right? And 100 to 400 seconds later, depending on the complexity of the prompt and the skill, we'll have an idea of whether this is good or bad. Okay, so this skill did end up finishing up eventually, and we can see everything that happened for it, right? And I didn't expect this one to be bad, so, and it looks like it's not, right? Our input risk is benign. And the runtime side, it says prevented. Sometimes it'll say your options are benign, suspicious, prevented, or malicious. And prevented happens when the agent decides to not run or exercise some of the features of the skill. Either that could be because it thinks it's bad or because it doesn't have the capability to do it, right? Maybe it requires an API key or something that it doesn't have. But from the TLDR perspective, skill is pretty straightforward weather lookup. It's not doing anything weird, although it does do a curl command. We can go check that out in a second. From time perspective, again, it didn't really do anything malicious. So our guidance is, hey, this is probably a low concern unless you have some other contextual risk that we don't know. We can also even check out like, hey, what did the agent output actually do? We can see all that. But maybe more importantly, let's go see were there any actual findings. So on the skill scanner side, Cisco skill scanner side, one finding, and it's like the skill doesn't have a license. Okay, so nothing big. FAMEV had nothing, YAR had nothing. And then on the dynamic side, Sigma caught the curl usage on Linux. And that was kind of the only thing that it occurred. So let's actually go down a little bit farther and take a peek at these Nova rules that hit, right? So you can see here this FP. I essentially have an agent try to do like a basic TP FP analysis on each of the findings to give them a little bit more weight or not. I just know like these are actually just rules I need to tune based on the way my harness prompt is. So I know these are things that happen all the time, and I just need to remove them. Cisco Skill Scanner fired that there was no license, and then Sigma fired on the curl rule, right? So seeing the curl tag S to this domain. From an agent perspective, we can see all the things that the agent tried to do and things it tried to do and things it failed to do regardless. On the network side, we can see full PCAP of all this. We could download that PCAP. And then OS activity side, did it write any new files? Sure did. I have a file created for every skill run that is just like some extra analysis of it. I call this the dry run skill validation, and it's just doing some basic analysis on the skill itself. But if it created any other files, right, there were 2 files that were created, I could click into any of them. Instead of modified, same. You can get an idea of all the things that could potentially be in here. But essentially trying to give you just as much evidence as possible to know if this is good or bad. All right, so let's talk a little bit about how you can sign up if you like to over here. Yeah. So if this is something you'd like access to, you want to use it, well, hey, you can go search up any skill that we've ever looked at over here in our skill zoo. So just again, search the name, the URL, the hash if you have it. Think of this as like your VirusTotal style. Go look up what we already know. But if you want to try running some prompts or some skills through us, just request access. Come in here. If you put in your email, a username you'd want, hit submit request, and that'll go through a quick approval process. Come back to you with a claim URL, and then you can log in. If you want to have your agent actually sign in, optimize this to be accessible to agents as well. So, just give your agent this skill URL, and that'll teach it how to request access. And then after the access request is approved and verified by the human owner, it will then get another skill on how to use the platform. So very API friendly, super cool to use there too. And hey, you can have an account for you and you can have one for your agent, however you like to use it. And then, of course, I hope you enjoyed my custom pixel art version of our SandyClaw here. All right. So just to recap all of this for you, SandyClaw is our dynamic analysis engine for scanning skills and scanning prompts to know if they're good or bad. This is a free tool that anyone can use. Come try us out. Submit some skills. Come look up some skills that are already in our library and give us some feedback. I've kind of been working on this in my own little bubble for quite some time now, about a month on this one. And I'd love some feedback on how we can make this easier, better, more reliable for you. I really do hope at some point this becomes the VirusTotal for skills, to know everything about a skill and maybe even everything about a prompt. So thanks for checking out this episode of All About Identity. We'll have a lot more to report on in the future. And do all the likes and subscribes and all that kind of stuff. Thanks.